Wasn't criticism invented to measure the value of a novel or a text? I won't use the word invented, but the purpose of criticism is to evaluate literature, right? But depending on where you are coming from, the method of evaluation can differ, right? If you are, let's say, Matthew Arnold, right, the famous essay Functions of Criticism by Matthew Arnold, he would tell you that the critic should not get involved in everyday exigencies of life. That means what he's saying is literally the critic should not be political. And the reason that he gives for that is that if the critic does that, then his work or her work will not live long, because it will be contingent upon the historical context within which he or she is writing. So what he calls it the scholarship of detachment, dispassionate scholarship, which means that a critic should only be worried about the long-term impact of his or her work. And they should constantly keep producing that, giving their opinions about different kinds of literary texts, so that in a long run, as their work is read later, it will have a long-term impact. Then as we move forward, I mean, literature is crafted work. It's art, and it claims to have certain solutions towards problems or whatever. But if you watch my first video on Eagleton's chapter, The Rise of English, literary criticism was introduced, by F.R. Leavies and Q.D. Leavies and others, because they wanted to claim a certain degree of specialization. They wanted to say that we are experts in this, and we have certain scientific tools to study literature. And if we give an opinion about a poem, that is an expert opinion, and not everyone can have that opinion, right? But beyond that, once you have created the figure of the literary critic or an expert, it cannot be just a simple method. All of them are trying to help us understand a text, but also trying to tell us whether or not a text is good or not. That decision to even make it mean something or to assign value to it is what Eagleton and a lot of other Marxists would tell you is ideologically and socially constructed, right? That is, there is no way in which I approach a text with a transparent self and receive from it its value. The way I receive value from a text is what I take to it, and that is my politics, that is my assumptions of value. And those values, what I consider good literature or bad literature, are not natural, right? Those values are socially constructed, right? And can differ from one person to another, from one institution to another. So that is the point, the value of literature. Is it in literature itself? And can it teach myself the value that it has? Or do I bring to it a certain way of looking at it? And that way of looking at it decides for me the value of the text.